Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
It is Friday, and all of our guests today are brought to you by our DTMC sponsor.
Yes.
The Whistler Golf Club.
Nice.
We thank Al Chris Manson for helping us out since this show started. As we go down to Florida now to talk with Thomas Drance of The Athletic and Sportsnet 650 in the wake of the Canucks 4-3 loss last night in Tampa Bay. They take on the Panthers in Florida on Saturday. Thomas, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well, gentlemen. I'm coming to you live from an auxiliary locker room space about 100 feet from my old office at the Amarant Arena. I'm here for Florida Panthers practice because I want to catch up with a gentleman named Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who happens to be playing about 25 minutes a night right now as the Panthers hold the fort, given their myriad of blue line injuries. Should be an interesting chat. I'd tell your viewers to look for that later on today or perhaps tomorrow at theathletic.com.
And intimate knowledge of that building, and thanks for going all out with the background there. We really appreciate it. Hey, Thomas, how do you explain? Let's start there before we get into talking about the Canucks. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, how do you explain all the positivity regarding his start with the Panthers?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think this dovetails nicely with a wider discussion. You know, you look at what the Panthers have, and what they have is very good infrastructure, right? You have Barkov, you have Tkachuk, you have this absolutely dynamic group of top nine forwards, and you have sort of a template of how they play, which involves moving the puck, with a variety of fast defensemen, one of whom, Gustav Forsling, a former Canucks draft pick, Ekman-Larsson is playing with. And you put it all together and you can create an environment where you can support players, right? Where we're supporting players who come in, have an opportunity to look good. You know, I don't know if you guys caught any of the Avalanche game against Chicago, for example, last night, but Ryan Johansson looks fast. Like you put Ryan Johansson, who, you know, say what you want about his game or where he's been at. Like, he hasn't been awful for Nashville over the past few years, but he hasn't played quick, but you put him in Colorado's infrastructure with that puck-moving D and that plethora of dominant players at the top of the lineup, and all of a sudden he looks quick. And I think this is a really useful launching off point to discuss the Canucks, especially in light of a game in which Tyler Myers is widely blamed, had two brutal breakdowns on the PK. There's no sugarcoating that. And yet, you know, year after year, we have the same conversation blaming the interchangeable depth pieces at the bottom end of the Canucks lineup for this team's shortcomings, without considering the possibility that Vancouver's infrastructure may be compromised as a result of them simply not having enough good players.
Well said. Thomas, you mentioned Tyler Myers taking a lot of criticism because of what happened last night in Tampa Bay. I know this goes back a bit, but that criticism, justified?
Well, it's justified in that he didn't play well. I thought he owned it. Like, I chatted with him post-game. I asked him about both of those plays. I thought he was accountable. I thought he handled it with good humor, and I thought he recognized that he'd made a couple of gaffes, a couple of plays that he'd want back. You know, in the first case, the clearing attempt, it's a really bad clearing attempt, and he's not under a lot of pressure. You know, bad clearing attempts happen a lot in the NHL. It's a dangerous play, and he needs to do better. You know, he thought he was under more pressure than he was, right? Stamkos is behind him when he first gets the puck in the slot. I think he was hearing footsteps that weren't there. And yeah, he should have, with more, you know, command, shot the puck down ice. You can see, like, the whole middle of the ice is open there. If he'd gone high flip, if he'd shot it, and he knows that. He didn't. He tried to clear it glass and out. It didn't work. And then here, you know, when you have a defenseman, on the penalty kill, sometimes when the puck gets tied up along the boards, right, that's when the puck stops being whipped around by the power players. And that's a moment, that's a trigger for a lot of defensemen to attack, to try and get the puck out, to use that to that opportunity where the puck's stationary to try and gain possession and get a clear. You know, I asked Myers effectively, like, was that the right read and the wrong outcome? And he basically agreed. He said, next time I'll try and hit one of their players and not Petey. Look, it was an ugly night for him. I mean, there's no sugarcoating that. I just think the idea that those two breakdowns are the reason the Canucks lost a game they allowed 4 goals against doesn't really compute. Like, for me, gentlemen, given the commentary about their performance and the need to have a bounce back, I thought they had an okay first period. I thought there were players, Dakota Joshua, Anthony Beauvillier, JT Miller on my short list who were absolutely flying in the first, skating hard, doing what you'd want in a response performance. Obviously, the Canucks have a great first minute of the second period. And then let's be real. Like, they got outshot 20-6 from the time Myers made it 2-1 through to when Kucherov scored after Myers hit Petey to make it 4-2. Like, that's the game. That's the game, and that's too consistent. We've seen 3 games where the Canucks have had lulls like this, where they've been absolutely flattened by opponents on the shot clock, and in 2 of the 3 cases, also on the scoreboard. We don't have a lot of sample for what this team has done, but in one game, they've played great. In the other, they competed hard and grinded out a win despite being under siege. And for me, I think the last 2 games, they've played pretty poorly as a team. I didn't see the response performance last night. I know the Canucks afterwards were saying the right things. We worked hard. We battled as a team. They get that 4-3 goal late from JT Miller, maybe like the last 5 minutes of their third period, I guess. I just thought they didn't sustain the sort of response performance that you'd have liked to see, especially given how pointed Tocchet's commentary was about the team following that 2-0 loss in Philadelphia.
Thomas, I thought they were on their way to 40-plus shots allowed, 3 straight games. You know what? Demko had 31 shots after 2 periods of play. They tightened up the third, only allowed 5. But still way too many, Thomas. And Demko has been, for me, the brightest story so far. Would you agree?
He's been sensational. But, Rick, I'll get back to praising Demko, but I want to twist it for you, which is like, if you're getting goaltending like this over a 4-game stretch, because it's not just Demko, DeSmith came in and was fabulous against the Oilers. You better be 3-1 or 3-0-1. You have to capitalize when the wind's at your back, because the wind's not always going to be at your back, right? And you even think about those 5 shots in the third period. Well, one of them was just about the most open shot you've ever seen, and Anthony Cirelli just happened to put it an inch high and hit the post, right? I mean, the wind has been at Vancouver's back. They're converting on a high clip of their shots. Their goaltending's been fabulous. Like, a variety of this team's players have PDOs, which is a combined save percentage and shooting percentage metric, and over a large sample tends to regress to 100 in the 110 range. That's concerning. Like, this, I don't think we've seen what this team really is at 5-on-5, in part because a lot of the bounces have been in their favor. And given that a lot of the bounces have been in their favor, for them to only be 500, it's early, whatever, but I mean, that is concerning. You need to strike when the iron's hot, and you need to have a baseline of ability to control the game, that when the bounces start going against you in droves, you can survive. I mean, if the Canucks hadn't had the bounces the last 3 games, and they absolutely have, these would have all been ugly games, right? Like, the Oilers, Draisaitl could have had 4 in that game on Saturday. The Flyers absolutely could have put up a crooked number, 6-0, something like that, against the Canucks on Tuesday. And Tampa Bay absolutely probably should have won that 5-2. So, I don't love to see a team sort of sputtering to get the results they want when they're also, enjoying the preponderance of puck luck. Like, to me, that's, it's too early to say it's like cause for real concern, but it's something that has to change against Florida on Saturday, against Nashville on Tuesday, if the Canucks are going to have a successful road trip here.
Thomas Pettersson, is he hurt? I mean, you're at the game. Do you notice anything anywhere that he's a little bit banged up?
I mean, I thought watching him play last night that he looked banged up.
Yeah.
But watching him around the rink, walking by him at practice, stuff like that, it's certainly not like lower body. Like, he doesn't look like he's limping or that he's encumbered in any way by some sort of ailment. So, look, it wasn't just the Myers shot. I know everyone's talking about the Myers shot that caught him in the leg, in the hindquarters area against Philadelphia on Tuesday. But he also took that big hit from Delorier in the first. Delorier is a big body. That was a pretty significant hit. I sort of wonder, if there's something going on there. I certainly, watching him play last night, it didn't look to me like 100% Petey. He was still good though, right? Like he was still an effective player, which is to his credit. I just thought the usual flair, dynamism, speed was a little bit off.
Mark Friedman, your report card on game number 1 for him with the Vancouver Canucks.
Well, you love the willingness to fight a guy 3 weight classes above him, right? I mean, that's a welterweight facing a super heavyweight. Yeah. And Jeannot delivered the sort of momentum-changing fight that might be worth trading an entire draft class for, at least if it were to happen in the playoffs. Look, I thought Friedman I didn't think it was a good game for him, to be totally honest with you. But I don't think it was a good game for anyone on the Canucks blue line aside from Quinn Hughes. And unfortunately, gentlemen, that's been the story too often. Like, that's just been the story too often. That Hughes-Hronek pair, the underlying numbers look good. They look good last night too. But I thought there's just a lot of meat being left on the bone with that pair together. I don't feel like they've really developed chemistry yet. Ian Cole is like a sharp, smart player. He doesn't hurt you. I loved the penalty that he took before the Lightning's 4-2 goal. That was a goal-saving penalty. It was worth taking, even if the Canucks couldn't get the kill. But, at 5-on-5, the Canucks have been shelled with him on the ice. And I think Carson Soucy's still finding his legs. I see a lot of the things that I've always liked about Soucy's game, already showing up. But again, the team just hasn't had enough control when he's been on, even though, I think his puck moving has played pretty well. And some of the neutral zone defensive stuff that I like about his game, I think is noticeable already. I don't think this team has enough on the back end, gentlemen. Like, I just don't. I haven't for a long time. And I think aside from, that dizzying performance on opening night, I think it's looked like that more often than not.
Yeah. Well, so you're back in the Sunrise, Florida area. It's Friday night. I can't imagine what you're going to get up to, Thomas. It's going to be crazy.
I don't think it will. I might stop in by the Elbow Room just to say hi, but I've got a few plans. Nothing too intense, boys. I'm in the midst of a pretty busy work stretch, and this trip still has 2 games left on it. I've still got some features to write, some good stuff to work on. So I won't be cutting as loose as you might hope that I would.
Why can't you have that dedication
hold it.
to work? Listen to Thomas. He's back in Sunrise. He could go out partying, and he doesn't.
You're in Florida, and you're dressed like you're in the North Pole. Like,
Rick, this is one of those things. This is one of those things you don't understand because you don't get out to the rink. This is the coldest building in the NHL.
Are you serious?
Yeah. This is the coldest building in the NHL because it's 28 degrees and humid outside. And if it wasn't, the ice would be even worse than it typically is, and it's typically not all that good. So, no, this is literally the coldest building in the league. Like, I carried this in, and the moment I got inside, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to need that. No, this is a veteran move. This is a guy who knows this building inside and out, knows he needs a shacket the moment he hits the rink.
Thomas, you have the guy next to me here, Rick Dollywall. It's raining outside. It's cold in Vancouver, and he's dressed like he's in Florida or in Hawaii.
You know what? He looks good. I'll tell you this, boys. If you guys were down here, I suspect I'd be having a wilder night.
Oh, there you go. No question about it. Hey, Thomas, thanks for this. Talk to you next week.
Thank you, gentlemen.